NASCAR is finally getting started, but Supercross has been going for 6 weeks and is a third of the way through their season. Let's give you a recap. Come on inside, step in the scrutineering room. What's happening, family? It's David. I'm back. As you can tell, my voice is a little crap from the Super Bowl. Darn you, Chiefs and Niners. That's what I get for overtime. Not completely blaming them from the voice, but thank you all for tuning in. Grab a seat, come on inside, and welcome to my first ever Two Wheel Tuesday episode. As I told you guys on episodes before, I try to do not just the typical NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, but I really like laying it out for you guys. So today I'm doing my first two-wheel episode. I'm going to try and do this as a little bit of a theme every Tuesday. Going to focus on our friends in the two-wheel world. And I want to get you guys caught up on Supercross. If you have not heard of Supercross or a little bit of unfamiliar to it, no worries. We're going to get you guys up to speed, give you a quick history, and then we'll talk about the major players, where we've been so far, and what's coming up for the rest of this season. So, AMA Monster Energy Supercross. Let's do a quick little history at a glance of the Supercross, shall we? Alright, so what is Supercross? Supercross is essentially stadium-based off-road motorcycle racing. Yes, they go into the big stadiums, baseball and football to be exact. They dump tons of dirt, they build the jumps, and basically we turn about 40 guys loose on dirt bikes. And the series has been going since 1974. The series was actually a spin-off of a couple of successful one-offs done at the LA Coliseum. The promoter titled it the Super Bowl of Motocross. Motocross, by the way, had been going for about 30 years before, about 25, 30 years before this. And they shortened it Super Bowl of Motocross, Supercross. Boom. Fun story. Daytona International Speedway, Bill France actually had a race on his infield in 1971. And yes, that is the same race 50 plus years later that is on the Supercross calendar today. Thought I'd just let you in on that one since it is Daytona week. But yeah, series runs from January to May. They race in the stadiums all across the country. They did do a little bit of a Canada swing for a couple of years, but now the series entirely US based now. But that's only just the tracks. Stars come from all across the world. There's two classes based on engine size. There is the smaller 250 two-stroke engine, the 250cc capacity engines, and then the bigger main class, the 450 cc's that give off the most horsepower, the fastest bikes out there. Fun thing about the 250, the smaller division, they're actually split geographically. There is a East division and a West division. So there actually are two separate championships on the lower 250 rung of the Supercross ladder. There's also like Supercross, there's also like 250 lights and other entry level series, but that's kind of the crux of what goes on. Real quick, the format, it is they split the field, they qualify the field. The field is split into two heats on both the 250 and the 450, and about 20 to 22 riders depending on how big the field is. They split the field in the two heats. They'll go 6 minutes on the track. Track usually covers about 40 to 50 seconds lap depending on the length. They'll take the top 9 from the two heat races. Then they'll go to whoever's left. They'll pour them into one last chance qualifier. They'll go 5 more minutes. They'll take the top 4. And then there's one last spot for a champions provisional. That'll make up a 23 bike field for a feature race. If you're in the smaller 250s, it's only 15 minutes. The bigger 450 is 20 minutes. And even though you're thinking like, man, that's really short, trust me, there is a lot of action packed into those races. And also in each race, after the time elapses, They will finish the lap they're on, and then they'll get the white flag to do one more lap. So that's a little bit of a crux of the history and how the races work. Now let's talk about the riders themselves, especially in the 450 class. Let's start with these two, Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac. These guys were going back and forth, trading championships from 2019 to 2022. Both men two-time champions. Tomac took 19 and 21. Webb took 20 and 22. But basically, these are the elite guys. They're the proven commodities. They're the top of the class. However, both of them were upset not upset, but both of them were put in their place last year by the reigning series champion, and that is Chase Sexton from KTM. He is back to defend this title with that number 1 plate, and he has definitely been, and he tore it up straight out of the 250s in 2023, came in, rocked the world, and took the title. Next up, Ken Roczen of Germany. He is a 2-time motocross champion. However, despite winning over 20 races in Supercross, he's yet to snag the big title. He's Suzuki's number 1 man, and could 2024 finally be his year? We'll get into that in a minute, but you gotta think the hopes are high. For Kawasaki, their main man is Adam Cianciarulo, number 9. He hails from Port Orange, Florida. He actually lives out in California now, but he is kind of their biggest hope for Kawasaki. If you are not familiar with Kawasaki, they're the green bikes. Honda's red. Suzuki is yellow. Yamaha is blue. They actually have a color theme with this, so bear with me on that. And KTM is orange, if you're trying to figure out. If you haven't seen Supercross, I'll put pictures up, so that way you can get an idea and see the bikes. Cianciarulo, a former champion in the 250s in motocross. But he's shown himself to be very capable. However, he's always been a little bit more of the underdog, but he's one of Kawasaki's leading riders, so you definitely have to look out for him. Next up, the other half of the KTM juggernaut, Ohio's Aaron Plessinger. He was a runner-up he was not a runner-up, but he has been a challenger in 250. He did get his fair share of wins. Never got the championship, and I'll get to why in a second. But he's always shown he's hungry. He's very viable, and he is like I said, he's quite the competitor. So he's a really underappreciated. He's that ace up the sleeve for KTM to back Chase Sexton in that Factory KTM lineup. Last but not least, I got to talk to you and give you the lowdown on these two brothers from Australia, Jet and Hunter Lawrence. No relation, clearly. But these two guys have rocked 250 Supercross last year. Jet won the West title. Hunter won the East. And if that wasn't enough, Jet went 450 racing in the motocross, which is the outdoor non-stadium half of the riding season, and he cleaned house literally. He won all 18 races. Yes, an undefeated perfect season in outdoor motocross, straight out of 250 on the Supercross level. So Jet coming in is probably one of the highest touted rookies since one James Bubba Stewart back in the 2000s. That's just how big he was. And with that being said, let's go straight into the rundown. And right up the gate, Jet came packing in the season opener at Anaheim. For historical context, Anaheim 1 is essentially Supercross's version of the Daytona 500. As I mentioned in our history lesson, LA is kind of where Supercross got its name, and ever since then, the season usually begins in the LA area. And for the longest time, especially I want to say since the 1990s, they've kicked the season off in Anaheim, and they actually have multiple races there in Anaheim, and we'll get to that in a second. But On his 450 Supercross debut, Jet Lawrence came out of the gates and cleaned house on debut, getting the first win of the season for him and his Honda US Racing team. So Jet showing that his super motocross season was no fluke, and he's going to be here to challenge for the title in Supercross in 24. Jet off to a flying start, winning the opener. However, the defending champ came back to fight on a muddy, rainy, pouring night in San Francisco at an AT&T Park. Chase Sexton for KTM stepped up his game and went on to take the win and the points lead after Jet had a not-so-Jet kind of night. Sorry, had to use the pun. But Sexton showing why he is the reigning champ, absolutely putting on a masterclass in the rain in San Francisco to take the win. Remember I told you guys Aaron Plessinger was an underdog? Well, guess what? Round 3 in San Diego, the kid brought out his medal. Plessinger goes on to take his first career Supercross win, and not only does he take his first win in San Diego, he took the points lead after Sexton and Lawrence didn't really have the best of nights. On to round 4, they go back to Anaheim, and this is a unique race. In both the 450 and the 250 West, I'll touch on the 250 in a moment, there is what's called the Anaheim Triple Crown. So basically, it's going to be 3 heat races. Basically, they did 3 smaller races, 12 minutes instead of the 20-minute big main, and they had like 3 separate races. Whoever scores the most points out of the 3 races gets the Triple Crown title. Race 1 went to Sexton, Race 1 went to Chase Sexton. Race 2, Jason Anderson of Kawasaki. Jason Anderson has not been the biggest name, but he still can pull out a result when need be. A little bit of the older guard, but Anderson showing his mettle. He gets race 2 in Anaheim. Eli Tomac finally showing his pace. He wins race 3. However, the night belonged to Cooper Webb, who is the number one man at Yamaha. 2 runner-up finishes in races 1 and 2, and a 5th in race 3 was enough because Tomac, Anderson, Jet, everyone had I won't say lackluster, but just didn't have quite the consistency that Cooper showed in the first 2 races. Cooper's 2 runner-up finishes enough to back him the Anaheim Triple Crown, and despite not winning a race on the track yet, has his first win of the season. He backs the 25 points for the round. Yeah, I know. Don't judge me. It's a little bit of a weird system. So, going east after the California swing, series heads east. First race on the east side, Motortown, Detroit, Ford Field, and Jet Lawrence gets back on his game. Second, he's the first rider to get his second win of the season. However, defending champ Chase Sexton right behind him. In second, he gets the points lead back from his teammate Aaron Plessinger. And then last but not least, this past weekend on the night before the Super Bowl in Phoenix, getting his 22nd Supercross feature win, Ken Roczen of Germany, Suzuki's number 1 man, gets Suzuki on the board. First win of the season. Jet gets a 3rd place podium, and with that, after a not so good night from Plessinger, means Jet takes the points lead going into the first off weekend of the season. So real quick, I'll put the top 10. But top 3 looks like this. Jet Lawrence, the rookie, 117. He leads the points by 6 over defending champion Chase Sexton and Aaron Plessinger, the San Diego winner, who has had the points lead. There for the second half of the California swing. He's only third. He's third, but only 9 points back. And if you think that's crazy, the graphic speaks for itself. Top 7. 17 points separate them. And remember, we're only a third of the way through the season. This has the ingredients to get absolutely epic. So, like I said, series will take a little bit of a break this upcoming weekend, and then they're back at it next Saturday. They're going to Jerry World. So if you're in Arlington, Dallas, the Metroplex area, go ahead, show our two-wheel friends some love. And then after Dallas, series comes to Daytona. Mentioned them earlier on. March 2nd, the 54th renewal of Daytona Supercross. And it is going to be one heck of a show. So after this weekend off, they'll have another run of 6 straight races before they're off one more time for the Easter holiday. And then they will have 5 races to finish off the Supercross season. So that's the 450. Real quick, I'll touch upon 250. I mentioned earlier they're splitting the East and West. The East has only had one race. That was the aforementioned Detroit round on February 3rd. Austin Faulkner went on to take the victory over Britain's Max Anstey in second, and Daxton Bennick is third. Fun fact, if you guys know him from Georgia, Austin and Max currently live in Cairo. Funny, right? One guy that I didn't mention on that podium and who many saw as the favorite going into this season is last year's runner-up to Hunter Lawrence, and that is Hayden Deegan. And yes, that is the son of Brian Deegan, a huge extreme sports, a huge name in the extreme sports realm. And his sister, and you already know his sister, Haley Deegan, out of the NASCAR Xfinity series. Hayden finished 16th in Detroit, so he's got a little bit of work to do when that series kicks back up. And if I'm not mistaken, Dallas is under the West, so the East series picks back up in Daytona March 2nd as well. However, let's head out west. Speaking of the West, let's head out there. They've got 5 races under their belt so far, and it's definitely another similar kind of I won't say Clash of the Titans type of run, but it's got a lot of action impacted. So behind Jet last year, the runner-up in this year's favorite was RJ Hampshire. He came out of the gates. He took the opening win at Anaheim. However, a lackluster night in the muddy rain in San Francisco opened the door for Jordan Smith. He came in after his second place to RJ in Anaheim. He took the win and the points lead in San Francisco. San Diego saw Nate Thrasher, who had a really rough first 2 rounds of the West Coast of the California swing. He came back strong, took the 250 main win in San Diego. And then the series came back for Anaheim 2, where just like in the 450, they also had their Triple Crown 3-race run, but they had 8-minute features instead of, they had 3 8-minutes instead of the 1 15-minute. Race 1 went to Levi Kitchen. RJ Hampshire took race 2, and Nate Thrasher took race 3. However, Levi followed RJ home in race 2 and finished third behind Nate in race 3. And Levi's consistency, 3 podiums on the night, more than enough for him to take the 250 Anaheim Triple Crown win at Anaheim 2 in round 4. And that was another big points bevy for Levi. In Glendale, RJ got back to his winning ways. He's the only 2-time winner on the schedule this season. However, his struggles at San Diego, his struggles in San Francisco and San Diego have left him third in the points, as Levi Kitchen, who won the Anaheim Triple Crown, he leads the point standings by 4 over San Francisco winner Jordan Smith. As they break, they again will be back in action in Dallas. That's the next round of the West Series. So with that being said, that's kind of the lay of the land so far in Supercross. again, third of the way through the season. They pick back up They pick back up not this weekend, but the week after, which is February 24th, and then they'll have one more break after that, and they'll go to the beginning of May. So that's our two-wheel portion of it. Before I go, I do have a couple of NASCAR notes to pass along. First and foremost, Frankie Muniz, who you guys may remember as Agent Cody Banks or Malcolm in the Middle. He is going NASCAR Xfinity Series racing, driving for driver owner Joey Gase. He'll be doing a limited schedule for the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year. And his first race, he will attempt to qualify for this Saturday's United Rentals 300 at Daytona in Joey Gase's Ford Mustang. So best of luck to Frankie. We wish him all the best. Frankie had a great season in ARCA last year, was a really consistent, led the points for a while as a matter of fact, before Jesse Love's winning Tornado just came through and took any chances of a championship he had out. No, seriously, if you saw the ARCA series last season, you knew as soon as Jesse got on his win streak, you knew there really wasn't much chance that Frankie was going to run out with the title. But like I said, a lot of consistent showing. And Frankie, who has ever been the fan of NASCAR, if you know, he was actually there for the 2001 Daytona 500. He actually rode around the pace car, and kind of a little bit of a solace note, he was there meeting Ken Schrader and Dale Earnhardt just hours before their fateful moment in turn 4. So Frankie, he's been working at this craft for a long time. And funny thing, he actually did open wheel on the Atlantic Series for a few years. Thought he had an IndyCar path going, but he kind of went back, did the family thing for a while, came back, now on the stock car round. Here he is, trying to make some waves in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Last but not least, last week I talked and gave you guys a little bit of a crash course on Extreme E. I told you guys Lewis Hamilton, Chip Ganassi, two big names in motorsports who had Extreme E teams were backing out. Well, when one person leaves, another steps in, and I don't think people saw this one coming out of left field, but enter Legacy Motor Club. Yes, the conglomerate of Maury Gallagher, Richard Petty, and Jimmie Johnson have announced that they are entering Extreme E in 2024, but here's the real curveball. Jimmie will be a driver this season. It was announced that Jimmie will not do the first 2 races, but after that, he will come back and he will do the balance of the Extreme E schedule in 2024. So definitely a very big announcement there, as Legacy Motor Club dipping their toes in a whole new pond this season, as they will enter the Extreme E arena. And boy, gotta think that's going to be a very interesting adventure to see Jimmie Johnson. We've known Jimmie to do some real bucket list stuff. Ran Le Mans last year. 2022 ran the Indianapolis 500, and now he gets to do some rally raid racing, off-road racing in the form of Extreme E. And like I said, if you miss my little explanation and spill mini history on Extreme E, I'll try and push the right button so you can get a little bit of a glimpse to that in the top right of your screen. But very interesting news, and I really hope and wish Legacy Motor Club, Jimmie Johnson, and the entire crew all the best as they take on the Extreme E journey. But with that being said, that does it for me. What do you guys think? Have you watched Supercross before? Are you a fan of Supercross? If you come across this episode, leave me a comment. If you like what you're hearing, drop a like. I know I don't have all of everything, but like I said, I'm a racing fan. I like to dip my toe in every little bit of place. I do my best to give you guys at least the hardcore stuff. I try to keep it base for the good fan, base for the entry levels, but still well enough for the hardcores, so that way they know how everything shakes out. But with that being said, guys, again, please leave a comment, like, subscribe. You really want to see. I got a lot of good stuff planned for the future. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I will announce it when time comes, when I'm ready, in due course. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for coming inside the Scrutineering room with me. I'm David. I will see you next time. And until then, remember, wear a smile. You look much better when you have one. So long.